Wherever we look, there is physics. The world is built around physics. Unless you're a total dumbass or blind, you cannot dispute the impact of physics in our lives, even if it's not tangible. Modern physics is built on the blood, sweat, and tears of PhD students and their greedy PIs who refuse to give them credit for their work. Among them, there were a few scientists whose ideas not only revolutionized the world but also made sure that every physics major will regret their life choices. The works of Isaac Newton, Huygens, Maxwell, Einstein, and Schrödinger laid the foundations for the physics as we know now. So join us in the journey from the time when physics students were curious about falling of fruits from trees to now where they wonder why they will die single in all 26 dimensions allowed by the M theory. In the 1600s, there was a man that changed how we understood physics by getting hit on his head with a fruit. His name was Isaac Newton, the inventor of gravity. Before that, people would just fly around willy nilly like crumbs in a biscuit tin with zero gravity. Legend says Newton discovered gravity when an apple fell on his head, which is odd because apple had been falling since the dawn of time, but apparently no one else thought to do the math. Uh, so the story of the apple is partly myth, but Newton himself told it later in his life. Uh, what really matters is that it led him to think more deeply about why the objects fall and whether the same force might explain the motion of moons and planets. Newton studied at Cambridge, where he came up with three laws of motion, simple rules that explain how everything moves. The classic for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction underpins all of classical mechanics. Right, so if I punch a wall, the wall will punch me back. That's basically it, but not in literal senses. Huh. Sounds like the walls got anger issues. So, Newton once said, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Was Newton implying he couldn't have seen further with his own legs? Or maybe he could have just used his glasses? Uh, he he meant it figuratively. He was acknowledging that his discoveries were built upon the work on earlier scientists. Uh, Not a problem with his eyesight as far we know. Hmm. Right, so instead of needing glasses, he just borrowed other people's ideas to see better. Well, not borrowed, more like expanded on the ideas. Ah, so academically shoplifted. Newton wasn't the only clever person in the 1600s. There were others, like Christian Huygens, a Dutch bloke who also liked light. In 1656, Huygens invented pendulum clock, which could tell time within seconds in a day. Before that, people used to stare at the sun and just guess when the dinner was ready.
Huygens' pendulum clock revolutionized the timekeeping. It allowed sailors to navigate more precisely at sea, crucial for determining longitude.
Who are you? Why are you talking?
I was asked to by the producers.
I didn't know we had producers. Anyways, so before that, sailors were sort of vibing in the ocean.
In a sense, yes, navigation was extremely difficult without accurate time.
Huygens was Dutch, which explains the canals, the clocks, and probably the accent. He's best known for his wave theory of light. It is the idea that light doesn't travel as tiny particles, like Newton said, but as waves, which is strange because you can't surf in it. So, between Newton saying light was bits and Huygens saying it was waves, who actually won?
Eventually, neither. Modern physics showed light behaves as both wave and particle, and it's called wave particle duality.
So, after 300 years of arguing, they just went like, you're both right, now shut up.
That's not inaccurate.
Christian Huygens gave us moon, clock, and waves. He made time tick and light wobble, and proved that in the 1600s, Netherlands produced something much more useful than just cheese. So, after Huygens said that light was wave, and Newton said that it was little bits, the world needed someone to decide who was right. The person was James Clerk Maxwell, a Scottish genius who combined electricity and magnetism and light as all the same thing. Maxwell came up with a bunch of equations so complicated that even mathematicians pretended to understand them. Maxwell grew up in a big house called Glenlair, which sounds like a rejected Harry Potter location. His mom died when he was young, so his dad basically raised him on porridge and equations. Fun fact, at 14, young James wrote a paper on drawing ovals with pins and strings because that's what kids did before YouTube. So he basically figured out that lighting isn't just nature getting angry at us, but something with math. Maxwell was born a theorist, or did he just realize it's easier to make equations work for him than people? Well, Maxwell came up with four equations, which are apparently very important in physics. They are like the IKEA manual for the universe. You follow them, and the electricity works sometimes. So, technically, every time you turn on a light, you're doing a little Maxwell.
Hence, he did predict that travels at a constant speed, which later Einstein proved.
Yes, Einstein, the man who made hair more fashionable for the geniuses. So, Maxwell sort of invented Einstein.
Not invented.
So, the next time you turn on a light, or listen to the radio, or accidentally electrocute yourself, remember James Clerk Maxwell, the man who made invisible stuff visible and made science shockingly confusing. So, what's the name of this exercise? Quanda. This is a box. Inside it, there may or may not be a cat. It is one of the most famous boxes in science, and also the only time a man became famous for not opening something.
Well, Schrödinger was founders of one of the founders of quantum mechanics. He proposed a thought of experiment, Schrödinger's cat, which showed what ridiculous quantum theory can become when you apply it to everyday objects.
So he invented a cat which is both dead and alive.
It wasn't really a cat, though.
So technically, if I don't open my bank account, I'm both rich and poor. Schrödinger also came up with wave equations, which describes how quantum states change over time. Apparently, it explains how particles behave, but I don't see how it helps me find my lost socks.
Well, Schrödinger gave the quantum theory, which developed modern technologies like semiconductors and quantum computing.
So basically, without Schrödinger, there won't be any Wi Fi or cat memes. which is ironic considering his entire legacy depends on a cat that technically doesn't exist. Huh. In the end, Schrodinger taught us that reality is weird, cats are unpredictable, and scientists in the 1930s were just one philosophical crisis away from being a poet. Quantum mechanics is the science of very small particles, like atoms, electrons, or government funding for research. At that scale, nothing makes sense to normal humans. It's like reality is drunk and no one wanted to tell it to go home. Schrodinger's cat taught us that things are uncertain until we look, which is comforting because that means my career might still be alive or it might not. The only way to find is to open the box. Albert Einstein is often described as a genius, but so is the man who invented cheese string. So, how did he become the most famous scientist in the history? And what was he on about? Was it just the maths or something much more sinister, like maths and thinking?
Albert Einstein revolutionized physics in early 20th century. His theory of relativity has changed our understanding of physics in terms of gravity, time, and space.
So, he basically looked at time and went, nah, that's wrong.
In that way, yes.
So, was he like the Elon Musk of thinking?
I won't say that because I think Einstein's work was more successful.
Right, so fewer tweets and more equations.
So not a right wing nut job.
I see. Einstein's most famous equation, E equals mc squared. It says that energy and mass are basically the same thing, which is why a small amount of mass can become a massive explosion. Or, in simpler terms, why the universe is not safe in the hands of an obese person.
He became symbol of scientific genius. His image is still instantly recognizable.
I see.
Einstein spent his later years trying to unify all of physics into one simple equation. He never succeeded, which goes to show that even geniuses have unfinished homework. He also played the violin, which just proves that even geniuses cannot escape being annoying at parties. From everything so far, quantum mechanics teaches us that the universe is stranger than we can imagine. Particles behave like they have a mind of their own. Reality is based on observation. Cats may or may not be dead. And somewhere out there, a particle is judging me for not wearing my socks. Quantum mechanics teaches us that the universe is stranger than we can imagine, which is reassuring because confusion is universal. Einstein thought the universe was orderly till it wasn't. Schrodinger thought cats were both dead and alive, which is right, sort of. Heisenberg told us we can't know anything and we are still trying to learn. Anyway,
So, after 100 years of quantum mechanics, what have we really learned? The universe is strange, reality is optional, and probably there is a particle out there that is silently judging you. So that's quantum mechanics, probably. And we are
137 inverse.